You are listening to the Pot.Live podcast. I'm your host, Lenny G, and this podcast is going to teach you all about what's happening, what the trends are, the latest news, the thought leaders, the business leaders in the cannabis industry. As this industry moves forward at a rapid pace, everyone needs to adapt. Everyone needs to change to what's going on. And we're going to bring you those guests. What are they doing to make their business successful? What are they doing to get their product out there? How are they getting exposure? How are they dealing with all the changing laws? That's what Pot.Live is going to be all about. And make sure you visit Pot.Live, download the app, go to the website, and you will see all of the digital media assets from articles, videos, podcasts, everything. The latest news and trends will all be at Pot.Live. Thanks for listening. Enjoy the show. Do you want to know the official online destination where you can find everything in the cannabis industry? It's theofficialpot.com. That's right, theofficialpot.com. What are you going to find there? How about everything? You're going to find the latest articles, news, and trends. You're going to find the marketplace where you can shop for all CBD products and accessories. You're going to find podcasts and videos, digital media, everything. You can get items delivered right to your front door. How about trying to find your nearest dispensary? Well, we have that information, geolocated to find all the businesses close to you. You could even get your medical marijuana card. Maybe you want to educate yourself on the different strains of cannabis and marijuana that are out there. Well, we have all of that information right on theofficialpot.com. Looking for a career? Sure, we'll hook you up. We've got all the latest job openings across the country. And if you're hungry, you can get your food and your cannabis delivered at the same time. Check us out, theofficialpot.com. Welcome to another episode of the Pot.Live podcast. I'm your host, Lenny G, and today I'm super excited to actually learn and be educated by Dr. Mark Lindholm. How are you today, Mark Lindholm? Welcome to the show.
Yeah, very good. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here with you. I'm glad to be able to connect with you and all of your listeners. So.
Excellent. So I don't like to give a intro for everybody. I want them to intro themselves. So give us a little background on who you are. I know you just released a book. I want to hear all about that. And then we're going to dive into the benefits of CBD.
All right, sure. So just a brief bit about me. So I'm as you mentioned, my name is Dr. Mark Lindholm. I'm a chiropractor, is the kind of doctor I am. I've been in practice for 26 years. I run a large chiropractic clinic with multiple providers in northern Indiana. And so I love what I do as a chiropractor. I would describe myself recently as a CBD entrepreneur and, as you mentioned, a CBD author. So I released this last April a book called The Doctor's Perspective on CBD, Science, Success Stories, and Changed Lives. And the backstory is that if you had asked me a couple of years ago, do you think you'll ever be involved in the CBD business or writing a book on CBD, I would have said absolutely not. Like, it wasn't on my radar at all. I only got involved in this because of a personal injury that I had. I actually ruptured one of the ligaments in my wrist, which is a bad injury for anybody, but especially for a chiropractor that uses his hands all day long to treat patients. It's a really serious injury. I tried all kinds of other things, and the problem was getting worse. It wasn't getting better. But not only was it very physically painful, but it was emotionally stressful because it had the potential to be a career-ending injury for me as a chiropractor. And like I said, I really love what I do as a clinician treating patients. So long story short, I tried a CBD product. And literally, it was the results were miraculous. Within 2 days, the pain was about 80% better. And over the course of about a month, it helped me to rehabilitate my wrist and completely correct the problem with absolutely no disability. So that's how I got started. Then I started carrying the product in then I spent months researching CBD. I have a long-standing practice in my clinic of doing functional medicine. So I do a lot of nutritional and herbal approaches. So I'm very familiar with those kinds of things. But I really was not familiar with CBD because, honestly, part of the reason I said that I would have never guessed I would do this is that I was very ignorant about CBD. I really thought CBD was just code for marijuana. I didn't realize that they were different things and so forth. But obviously I found out that wasn't the case at all as I did my research, which led to writing my book and then led to getting involved with a CBD company called Zelease and their main product called Ultracell, which I carry at my clinic.
Excellent. So let's really start at the beginning, right? Because we have a lot of listeners that are business owners, entrepreneurs, and maybe have some education on CBD. But I'm sure there's a lot of our new listeners that CBD is brand new to them, just like it was to you a few years ago. So can you just tell everybody, give us a little background. What is CBD? Why is it different from THC and marijuana and making you high? And give us your thoughts on that, what it is from a definition point of view, and then we'll talk about the different ways it can help.
Right. Okay, perfect. So if you don't mind, what I'd like to do is first talk about the reason that CBD works in the human body is take even a step further back is because we all have what's called an endocannabinoid system in our body. So it's actually almost laughable when people say like they don't want to use CBD because we all produce endogenous self-made cannabinoids in our body. 2-AG and anandamide are the two that are the most well studied. And so all vertebrate animals, not just humans, but any animal that has a spine has a cannabinoid, an endocannabinoid system. So we have receptors, CB1 receptors and CB2 receptors are the main receptors distributed throughout our body, literally in every system of our body, especially the brain and the immune system, but your reproductive system, your endocrine system, every system in your body. And so you can think of it like a hormonal system because that's exactly what it is a hormonal system in your body. But the amazing thing is that the way these endogenous cannabinoids act on the system, they have this overarching effect that tends to drive or to balance the whole rest of the body. As a matter of fact, in endocannabinoid research, they talk about the endocannabinoid system being the engine of homeostasis. And homeostasis is this overarching balance in the body that's super important. So, for example, when I started studying it, I thought, well, how can this be true? How can one product cause opposing effects? How can it help somebody that has, for example, a very low functioning immune system where they're sick all the time, or maybe they're even struggling with a major thing like cancer? How can it upregulate that immune system in that person? But how can you give that exact same herb or extract to somebody that has an autoimmune problem where their body is attacking itself because their immune system is too active? How can it help both those people? It just didn't make sense to me. But when you understand the endocannabinoid system of this moderating effect, then it becomes really important. So to get at your question of what CBD is, so CBD comes from the hemp plant. The hemp plant has two major components when we look at cannabinoids. There's THC, which is what makes people high, and CBD, which does not. And you get all of the benefits from the CBD with none of the negative side effects, addictive behavior, or any kind of tolerance or any problems that you get with THC. You don't get those with CBD. So legally in the United States, to be considered CBD and not marijuana, the product has to have 0.3% THC or less. You can think of, the way I explain it, you can think of marijuana and hemp like plant cousins. I live in the Midwest, and so when you drive down the road, you'll see fields of corn, and it's hard to tell when you're driving down the road if it's popcorn or sweet corn or field corn because they all look the same. Very similarly, hemp is the parent plant. It's actually one of the oldest cultivated plants in human history. We have records back at least 6,000 to 10,000 years of hemp being used industrially for making fabric and rope and things, but also being used medicinally and used for food. But the marijuana, what we now think of as marijuana, is a version of hemp that's been hybridized to produce much higher levels of THC for that psychoactive or recreational high effect.
Excellent. So you think about that, listeners. You just learned in 5 minutes, basically everything you need to know about what the difference is between the plants. And it's funny because you summarized it very succinctly and perfectly, Doctor. So I appreciate that. And I want to continue on the education path here for our listeners.
Yeah.
So one of the biggest things that you see searched is anxiety, right? A lot of people have panic attacks. They just have anxiety. They have restlessness at night to go to sleep. Let's go through a couple of the benefits one by one. So let's talk anxiety. People that use CBD, how do they take it? Is it topical? Is it a tincture? What's the best way to take it for anxiety specifically?
Right. So first of all, before I talk about any conditions or diseases, I have to do a medical disclaimer. So I'm not giving any medical advice. A lot of the physicians will be aware of this if they're in your audience that, supplements or extracts like this are not drugs. And so the FDA has rules about what we can say. So I'm not promoting any particular brand or supplement when I'm talking in this section of our interview. I just want to have a disclaimer that I'm not making any medical claims. So part of the reason I wrote my book was that when I started doing my research, like I said, I spent months researching it. I was honestly mad. I was mad because I thought, why did I not know about this? Why did I not know that it can help things like anxiety and a bunch of other things we're going to talk about? There are thousands of studies out there that look at this. With anxiety, there's a number of human studies, actually. A lot of the other studies are preclinical studies done in animals. But yet with anxiety, I would honestly say that when I started using this product with my patients, that was one of the things that really changed their lives. I would often recommend it for other things like for pain, joint problems, arthritis, but people would come back and say, Doc, my anxiety is completely gone or dramatically better. So it's very well researched that CBD can help with that. So you have a very high level of the CB1 receptors in your brain. And the way that the cannabidiol or the CBD binds to these receptors, it has this calming effect on your nervous system and tends to often really help with anxiety. So I personally find with the product I use at my clinic that the sublingual product is best for that. But I do have a patient that can't take the oral or the sublingual that uses a topical. She actually rubs it on her abdomen and that the main reason she takes it is for anxiety and has reported amazing results. The other thing is that I find is that this isn't a drug that overpowers your body. Like I said, the beautiful thing about it is that it's a plant. I should maybe step back and say that the reason we need CBD to begin with is that I mentioned we create these endogenous cannabinoids, but the problem is that most of us are deficient in them. We have these thousands of years of cohabitating with this hemp plant, and just like we're required to eat so much iron and get omega-3 fats and have vitamins in our diet, a lot of us believe as we research this that we're really designed as human beings to consume a certain amount of hemp oil to get not only CBD, but the other beneficial things from it, like the terpenes and the flavonoids and the omegas and all those things. So the problem is we're deficient in these cannabinoids. And so I find that I think about it almost like somebody taking a multiple vitamin, something that helps to upregulate how their body functions. But so I would say either a topical or a sublingual could work. Those honestly are the only things that I use in my clinical practice. I don't like vapes because there's so many problems with damaging your lungs. I don't like those kinds of products.
Do you find that there's a certain milligram amount? Obviously, all these products, you see edibles with, 5 milligrams. That's not going to do anything for you. Then you have the tincture, the sublinguals, like you said, at 250, 500, 1,000 milligrams. Is there a sweet spot where your research or your patients get results?
Right. So this is a little bit complex, but I want to answer this thoroughly because I think it's really important. It's a little disingenuous when companies are talking about the strength of their product because it's really all about absorption. So it's not how much you take in, it's how much your body can actually utilize. So let me tell your listeners, there's actually 4 things that I believe that you should look for in a hemp product or a CBD product. The first thing is it should be a full spectrum or a broad spectrum product. Not a CBD isolate or a synthetic isolate. Your body knows what to do with plants, and there's this synergistic, what they call entourage effect. There's actually over 100 different cannabinoids in the hemp plant that all synergistically work together and also moderate the function or have different individual functions, but also that moderate the effectiveness of it. So that's really important that it's a full spectrum. It's also really important that it's organic. Part of the reason that the hemp plant contains all of these amazing things is it's a bioaccumulator. It'll take up nutrients from the ground, but it'll also very readily clean the ground. You can actually plant it in areas to do just that, to clean the ground. It'll take up heavy metals, pesticides, herbicides. So it's really important. It's organic. And it's important because of this boom in this industry. There's companies out there that are really just crummy. It's important that all of these things I'm mentioning, that they have hard science to back it up. So I would say it's best not only that they claim it's organic, but it should say that it's sourced from USDA certified organic hemp. Third thing is that in my opinion, there's some people that disagree with me, but in my opinion, the literature shows that you don't need the THC. So I would recommend a very low level of THC. The product I use is 0.0% THC. As I mentioned, to be legal, it has to have 0.3% THC. But strictly speaking, the cannabinoids are lipophilic ligands. What that means is they love fat. And so you accumulate THC in your fat cells. So even a legal product of 0.3%, it's not going to make you high, but it can accumulate in your fat cells. And most people, after they use that for several months, are very likely to flunk a drug test. So it's a big deal for people that their job might be on the line. So as a clinician, I recommend a product that's 0.0. I've been using that product with hundreds of patients over the last year and a few months. I've had hundreds of patients that have been drug tested. Nobody has flunked a drug test. And then to my point, the main thing is absorption. So I use a product it's actually patented. It's called Ultracell, and it's patented their Ultracell technology. It's a liposomal micellization combination that drives their product into the cell. And the problem with hemp oils are that they're oils, and oil and water just don't mix. Our digestive system does not easily digest and absorb oils. So the industry standard for an oral oil is about 3 to 6% absorption, maybe 10%. There's been a few studies that shown 10%. So you're wasting at least 90% of the product that's not actually getting into your body. The Ultracell product, they actually did a study that they commissioned through the Mayo Clinic Professional Research Center, where they gave 20 participants their product orally, and then they did serum blood draws to actually measure how much got into their system. And they found that it had 80 to 94% absorption. And that was a 12-hour study. They had a fast onset. By the first hour, they were up at those levels, and they maintained in all 20 participants that 80 to 94% absorption for 12 hours. So I'm sorry that that's so much information, but I mention that because the brand I use is only 16.67 milligrams per serving, which is once a day. And honestly, with anxiety, people sometimes even get benefits with half of that or a portion of that. But I know that 80 to 94% of that is getting into their system.
All right. So just to back up, and thank you for that explanation. Just to back up, so if somebody sees a tincture bottle and it says 250 milligrams or 500 or 1,000, a lot of that is not being absorbed. So does it matter which one they purchase?
Well, they just need to do the math. So, if it's let's say just for easy math, it's 1,000 milligrams per dose, and they're getting at best 10%. It's probably more like 3 to 6%. But let's say just at best 10%, they're only getting, 100 milligrams of that is actually being absorbed. If I'm doing the math correct, I'm not a mathematician.
So you're just a doctor. You're just a doctor that will play one on TV. That's okay.
But it's also cost effectiveness. So like let's say just for easy math, you had $100 to spend on a product and you're absorbing 3 to 6% of it. It means out of that $100 purchase, you're getting $3 to $6 of value. With the product that I carry, I have hard science that shows that if somebody spends $100 on it, they're getting $80 to $94 of value out of it. So I think that's important. But mostly if they just do the math, they could figure it out about how much they're getting.
Understood. So let's say a consumer finds a product they like or a quality product like you mentioned. How long have you seen in your research, and I don't know if this is in your book or just through your practice, when someone starts using CBD, do the effects happen immediately, within a day, within a month of having it in your system? Is there a sweet spot for that as well?
Right. So because I mentioned earlier, we have this deficiency of this endocannabinoid system, we have to kind of bring it online. And, just like if you have a deficiency in some other nutrient, like when you take your first iron pill, you don't all of a sudden, restore your levels. It takes a while to get it back. So I find that it takes a month or two for the full benefit. But with anxiety, I find that it can be very fast acting. Often within the first few days, the first week, I have literally had patients clinically that are having an anxiety attack, and I dose the sublingual under their tongue, and literally within minutes, the anxiety attack is better. So there's some variance. Again, I think it depends on how deficient your endocannabinoid system is and how easy it is for your body to kind of upregulate that system. But I think anxiety and helping with sleep are often the things clinically I've noticed improve the quickest. Things like autoimmune problems, digestive issues, inflammation, pain, that often can take a little bit longer.
And I know you mentioned earlier treating your wrist injury earlier. Mm-hmm. A lot of people I've seen a lot of sports creams come out, right? So they're infused with menthol, they have CBD in them. Do you think that CBD can enhance a Bengay type of product on sore muscles, on a topical cream, rubbing that in? Does that help? Have you seen that help?
Oh, definitely. So in my clinic, we have 3 massage therapists as well as 3 chiropractors, and my massage therapists use the topical version of the Ultracell, and it can be very fast acting, especially, like I said, for surface joint issues, plantar fasciitis kind of problems, tendonitis, sore muscles, even headaches, things like that. As a matter of fact, the brand we use is, like you said, combined with other things. So it's combined with essential oils, and it's in an aloe vera base that helps to drive it into the system. Again, it's about absorption. But no, the topical could be very good. I just think that for getting it in like every cell of your body to get like that maximum benefit of balancing your body and that homeostasis effect, that I think the oral is best. And then I often have people do both. They'll use the topical also.
Yeah, I'm a golfer, and I have some shoulder injuries, and I've been recently using a CBD infused sports cream on my shoulder after I play, and I notice immediate relief. It does wear off after a certain amount of time, but immediately it's nice relief, and so far so good for me. So I'll continue to use it.
Can I mention one other thing about the topical? So it also, there's some research in my book, a whole chapter about the antimicrobial and antiviral effect of cannabidiol on the system. And I find that the topical is amazing. I have teenagers that use it on their skin. It's amazing for breakouts, for acne, with none of the side effects that you get with some of the drugs that we use for that. So I've had patients use it effectively for fungal infections also topically. So again, it's not a drug. I'm not claiming that it's curing those things, but I've just seen amazing clinical results with some of those things.
Great. And I'm happy you mentioned your book again. So let's dive into your book a little bit. Tell everybody where they can obtain your book, where they can purchase your book. And Len, I want you to pick a few main topics in the book that they can learn about.
Perfect. So it's available on any online, source. So Amazon for sure. If you just search for Dr. Lindholm and CBD, it'll come up. But the title of the book is A Doctor's Perspective on CBD, Science, Success Stories, and Changed Lives. It's also available on Barnes & Noble. You can also get to a link to it from my personal website, which is just cbddrmark.com. So any of those ways you can find it. If you're somebody that wants bulk orders, you can email me through my website, and we can, I have bulk order opportunities for my book. So yeah, the whole idea of the book, like I said, was to get this information out. When I started researching it and saw all the different things that CBD could help with, then I started looking at, well, what books were out there? And honestly, there weren't a lot of good books. They were either super technical and clinical. What I attempt to do in my book is take the PubMed research and make it understandable by the general public. Everything is footnoted with the sources, but as a lot of physicians will know, for the average person to read PubMed research is like reading a foreign language. The hardest part was editing the book to make it so that it was understandable. But then it's called Success Stories and Changed Lives because it's interspersed with personal or stories of patients or people that I know, their personal experience with using CBD. And then the book is broken down into chapters that have to do with conditions, but I also discuss, how safe is CBD? How should I take it? Like we discussed, what's the difference between marijuana and CBD? And then I go through different conditions. So I talk about anxiety and depression, diabetes, inflammation, epilepsy, dementia, and neuroprotection, CBD and cardiac function, immune function. I actually have a whole chapter on cancer. And then I talk a little bit about what I believe the future of CBD is.
That sounds fantastic. And we will put all of that in the show notes, ways to get your book and your website and everything like that. So now let's talk about CBD going mainstream and your views on the industry. So there's a zillion CBD brands out there. Every mom and pop is starting their own CBD brand. Who knows what's real? Who knows what's not? And I talk about this a lot on this show. What is your feelings on where the industry is going? Is it going to be where eventually Big Pharma gets into it and there's a few major brands that are in the top, Walgreens, CVS, and they just take over the market? Do you believe that everyone is going to have an opportunity to have a choice? What do you see in the future? Just your opinion.
Yeah, so I see a huge continued growth, and that's not just my perspective, but and I'm sure you're aware of this, and some of your listeners might be. If you just Google Forbes and CBD prediction, or Fortune magazine, they're predicting this is by the end of this year it's going to grow 700%. In the next 3 years, it's going to be a $22 billion industry. And the huge thing that's hard to even wrap my mind around is that they predict in the next 10 years, this is going to be $1 trillion industry. I don't think it's going to go away. I think there's too much push. And you've got different segments of the population. You've got the baby boomers that are seeking out a natural approach and that honestly, grew up in an era where they're not afraid of hemp or cannabinoid kind of things. And then you also have a younger segment that, especially like the anxiety issue that we talked about, that I see that in the Gen Xers or in the younger people if they're interested in it. So So I think it's going to continue to grow. Personally, at my clinic, when I first started carrying CBD, my first order of CBD, I pre-sold in 3 days when people found out that I was carrying it. That's how much demand there was for it. So as far as the FDA, I think, now that it's under the purview of the USDA, so because of the Farm Bill, hemp has been made legal federally, and it's now considered a commodity, not a drug anymore. That the FDA has always, in my opinion, been not in favor of nutritional supplements and herbal supplements and botanicals like this. I think honestly that it's not a level playing field, that they're a little more critical of them. But I think rightfully so, as you said, we do need to make sure that we're weeding out companies that are just fraudulent or don't have good quality control on putting out a good product. I think organizations like the U.S. Hemp Authority now, which is an outside organization that is looking at and certifying what companies are high quality. Things like looking, just like I tell my patients when they're looking, I don't think this is really different from fish oil or probiotics or a multiple vitamin. There's junky things out there in those realms also. So I always tell people, you should look, it should be GMP certified. Everything should be third party tested. You need to look for the high quality companies. I think that there's some education that needs to happen. Just my personal opinion is I would not be surprised if the FDA does do something with isolates or synthetic isolates because of Epidiolex, which is a CBD drug that's been approved as an isolate. I wouldn't be surprised if they make those by prescription, but I think it's going to be hard for them to do that with a full spectrum or a broad spectrum botanical that comes from the hemp plant.
Let's jump back to another symptom, our veterans, right? Our military vets come back. PTSD is a huge factor. We interview a lot of vets on this show, and we work with a lot of their organizations. Can you talk about the benefits for people suffering from PTSD for CBD?
I think every single patient that has PTSD should be on a high quality, broad spectrum hemp oil. I see such amazing benefits with that, so much so that I'm really interested. It's really interesting that you brought this up. So the Zalease company, the product that I use and that I'm involved with, I'm a Zalease ambassador with that company. They actually are a social enterprise. So like Tom's Shoes, every product that we sell, we give back a product of prenatal vitamins and multiple vitamins, but they also have a program called the Patriot Project. Our company actually donates our Ultracell product that's distributed through existing veterans organizations, specifically to help veterans that are at risk for suicide, PTSD, traumatic brain injury, post-traumatic stress disorder. So that's really important. Actually, so important that the Zalease company just recently even upped their involvement in this. Besides just donating product, they recently are completely underwriting a facility in South Dakota. It's called the Sacred Mountain Retreat Center. And it's a place where veterans can go to and have this very immersive experience that are at risk for suicide. And it's now been renamed the Zalease Sacred Mountain Retreat Center. So yeah, I think that is a huge, huge thing. It's so sad that our veterans come back sometimes with emotional and physical injuries, and the rate of suicide among our veterans is really sad. So yeah, so I think that's there's a huge need for that.
Excellent. So basically, before we finish up, Doctor, I want to know something you're super excited about in either the overall cannabis industry or just the CBD industry, or something you're very concerned about, or both.
You're going to stump me here. So what am I the most excited about? How about maybe what's like the nearest and dearest to my heart? I think we all know people, and I have a whole chapter in my book about this, that have been, touched with cancer. And I know this is kind of a hot topic that a lot of doctors don't even want to touch, because in the United States, there's only a few approved, treatments for cancer, surgery, radiation, chemotherapy. So I'm not claiming at all that CBD cures cancer, but there's a lot of science that shows that at the very least it can help people that are going through cancer treatment to really ameliorate the symptoms they get as they're going through traditional treatments. But there's a lot of preclinical science done in vivo and in vitro with animals and in petri dishes, showing that cannabidiol or cannabinoids upregulate the immune system to actually cause apoptosis, which is pre-programmed cell death of cancer cells, as well as like in breast cancer, reduce or have anti-angiogenesis effects where it decreases the formation of new blood cells to feed the cancer. And this has been, I have footnoted really good research in my book about, skin cancer, prostate cancer, pancreatic cancer, breast cancer. So my understanding is that GW Pharmaceuticals, that has the patent on Epidiolex, also has a drug that is going through testing with the FDA right now as a cancer drug. I think that's something that's super exciting and I think is a wave of the future, because you also have all of these other entourage effects that can be beneficial. But I'd say that's the thing that really is nearest and dearest to my heart, because I have some really close relatives of mine that have, died from cancer. And so I'm really excited about that.
Any concerns about the industry?
Well, definitely the quality, and again, it's not exclusive to CBD. It happens in supplements. There's study after study showing that, you go to, and I'm not picking on major retailers, but I won't even name one. So you go to a major retailer and you buy a supplement, and then you have a third party tested and say it's supposed to have so many milligrams of fish oil in it, and you find out it actually has very little fish oil in it, or it's an herb, and it doesn't have in it what it's supposed to have in it. So it's not exclusive to this. It's just that there's such a boom with CBD that I think the potential profit is driving more low quality people into the market. So I think that's my biggest concern, is we do need to have some regulation of making sure that there's quality products that people are taking.
Wow. Thank you for all the value today, Dr. Mark Lindholm. Everybody check out his book. It'll be in the show notes. All the details will be there. We'll have a link to purchase it. And thank you so much for your time. You've given our listeners a lot of value today, and we just appreciate it greatly.
So it was my pleasure. I really want to thank you for having me on the show.
You got it. And we'll see everybody next time on the Pot.Live podcast. If you're listening to this podcast, that means you like digital media. And where is the home for all digital media content in the cannabis industry? It is Pot.Live. That's right, Pot.Live. That's where you'll find all of the podcasts that you like, just like the one you're listening to right now. All of the video content that you love, and all of the written articles, trends, news, whatever you need, it's all right there. Entertaining and educational, the home of digital media content in the cannabis industry. Visit us at Pot.Live and download the free app at your Google Play Store and the Apple iTunes Store.